So, all right. So this is my first interview. I have manager Fred Dillard here. So Fred, if I may ask, what department, company, or organization do you work for?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, Fred Dillard here. I work for Oklahoma State University, specifically for the Housing and Residential Life Department.
Nice. Thank you so much. And so within these departments, what kind of teams do you manage?
Yeah, so I manage typically student teams and then other staff teams. So for the student teams that I manage, they're more student leaders. So such as there we have two organizations that are based out of housing called the Residence Hall Association. That's one of them, and the other one is the National Residence Hall Honorary. So both of them have an executive board with students on there that manage the organization, and I manage the students. Additionally, I have a staff of student desk clerks that work here in my office. They work at the front desk and they manage the day-to-day operations. And so I supervise that group. And then I also have supervisory skills for like our grad and full-time staff levels. So we have grads that run our residence halls and other specialty organizations. And then we have full-time supervisors who manage those people. And so I kind of oversee some of that as well. I kind of sit on what is called in housing, our mid-level management team. So we're not at the top, but we're the middle people who are managing everything below us. And so just managing about 3 or 4 different teams here.
Wow. So you manage like everything from like student orgs to like your own professional teams. That's really cool. And so like you must have like a wide range of like different motivational styles and different management styles, right?
Yeah, and so for me, I try to motivate based off of what the student or the employee wants. So, and that's just kind of something I learned a while ago with myself and like how like I was looking at my supervisors and how they tried to motivate us as a team, but oftentimes that didn't work just because. I mean, you have a diverse group of people that you're working with, no matter where you're going to go. If you're managing a team, they're going to be a diverse group of people. And so, what works for the team is not going to work for every single person on that team. So, I prefer to motivate individually versus as a team. Now, if the team does have things that they like to be motivated or things that I notice that will motivate them as a team, I will do group motivation. But I really try to focus on that individual motivation.
I see. And I feel like that's pretty smart too. Individual motivation probably works a lot more effectively than group motivation. And I see that you say that because from you see that from experience too. So with that, like how would you describe your management style within your teams?
Yeah, so I think my management style is very much of I like to call it like a hands-off approach. Initially, that probably sounds like that comes across pretty negative, right? Oh, this person's never available or never around. No, I really like to have my student leaders and my staff members to take charge of what they were either hired for or they were elected into a position for. So if you are a student leader you were elected into our marketing position, I want you to take full ownership of that because you are the one getting the experience, not me. I have the experience already. I need you to get the experience. And so I want you to have full autonomy over that area. But I do need to be kept in the loop on everything because when someone else hires me to ask questions about like, okay, so why did we do this? I need to be able to back you up and support your decisions. If you don't let me know what you're doing, then I can't back you up or support you. And so I really like to take off that hands-off approach, but then I am always there where you need me. So if you're like, hey, I need your opinion, I need your suggestion, or I need I just need a plan, I need help. I am always here for that. But I really try not to micromanage or control those individuals.
I see. And so like with that hands-off approach, you're kind of more of like a watchful eye, more of than just like someone who like takes charge and like actually leads someone because you believe like their position is for them and they make what they make of it. So with that, one thing that I would ask to you is how do you like measure how well like how I guess how do you measure performance on your team?
Yeah. So the way I manage performance is basically, um, are you getting your position done, your job, so whether your job or your leadership role, and two, what is the quality of the product you're producing? So again, going back to the marketing example, if you are putting together flyers, videos, um, handling our social media handles, is what is the quality of the products that you are putting out. If it's good quality, and you are getting all your projects done, then that's going to be how I'm going to assess it. But if the quality is not there, maybe you're getting the projects done, but the quality is not where the standard of where it needs to be, then that's where I'm going to be giving some feedback. And usually I will try to make it very specific. So if it's pulling up a tweet saying like, okay, so here are 5 spelling errors in this tweet. So what is that? What is the image of the organization now that this tweet is out there?
Mm.
Or is this, or pulling a flyer? Okay, so this flyer has the incorrect date and location on it. So how do we correct this so that people are not showing up to the incorrect location? Or like, okay, now we have to reprint all these flyers because of that, and now that's an additional cost of our budget that we were not anticipating to incur. So it's just really trying to do that. And then of course, like on the like university level, we also have like formal evaluations that are very dictated by the department and by the university. So we have to usually follow those standards. But in addition to that, it's just more of like looking at their performance, looking at the quality of their task and things like that they're getting done, and giving feedback as needed.
Nice. Okay, so I see that you have like different, also performance evaluations for like different teams as well. And so like with that, like a lot of it goes into like quality work. A lot of it goes into like how you are received, or how well like others are received in terms of like your view, like for those formal evaluations, like you said as well. So with that, we'll kind of move on to like a lighter side of like this interview. And like one thing I'll ask to you is, what do you like about managing your teams? Right, that was kind of like that's kind of like a weird transition. Like what do you like about managing your teams?
Yeah. So for me, what I like about managing my teams is the creativity that comes out of the autonomy that I give them. And I've been managing teams for several years now, and so different people come up with different things, and so you're just like, I never would have thought about that. Or seeing the team member who is struggling, maybe even they were kind of questionable when I hired them. I was like, I don't know, but maybe I think there's something there that we can develop. So especially seeing those people develop, it's just like it makes me feel like I have done my job well. Taking someone who sometimes like we refer to lovingly as a project. So like I think it's always good to have a project on your team, like as a manager, to help them develop and grow. Sometimes that it works out; they're receptive to that development, and then other times they're not, and so you have to just kind of know when they are, when they're not. But I think essentially what I am is a student development specialist, and so if I have developed a student from the place that they came to me at to a better place when they're leaving me, then I feel like I have done my job well.
And that's good too. I really feel like that's very smart. I really like that you feel like creativity is a thing that comes from the autonomy that you have among your teams, and I feel like that's awesome. And so with that, like you said that you were someone who develops leaders among other, like among students. So with that, like as someone who does that, what do you think is one leadership trait that you have that you think is essential to becoming one who leads?
Yeah. One leadership trait that I think I have that is essential to others, I think honestly is like probably like a sense of organization. I'm actually going to say two. I think a sense of organization, and also a work ethic that gets things done. I think, thinking about people I've worked with, thinking about people I've managed over the years, the people that I feel like have been the best like team players have been people who get things done. Oftentimes we like to hire people because they're friendly and they're bubbly, they like to talk, and that's great. Having a connection is super important in the workplace. However, you also need peers and people that you manage that are going to get the tasks done, because that is what we are paid to do. We are paid to produce tasks for our institution, our organization, our company. And so I think like my organization kind of goes hand in hand with getting things done. So like whether it's having my to-do list, whether it's like spending the time to get things done, whether it's, you know, scheduling my calendar a certain way so that I can make sure that all of my tasks are getting done, that I'm meeting deadlines, I'm meeting expectations. And so I think those are like the two of the biggest things that, like, if you can come into a leadership position with organization and the effort to get your stuff done, then I think other things can be developed, like whether it's how to network, how to talk to people, how to manage things like that.
Yeah. Wow. Honestly, you're taking up like a lot of my questions that I was gonna ask you too. Like a lot of these bridge into like other questions. Like I was hoping that they bridge. Man, like you're honestly taking a lot of them too. Like for example, one thing I was gonna ask you is like how do you motivate teams? And like, but like I mean, you kind of already like talked about that. Everybody
Yeah.
has motivational patterns, and I feel like that's really, I feel like it's really like a good thing too. That like that's a very good attention to detail as well. Is that like some teams don't like have like fluidity where you can uh like show motivation to them in like one whole way, but you can do that in like an individual ways, and I feel like that's really good attention to detail. So like one question that I'd like to ask you as well, because you said that earlier that like you do like a hands-off approach to like some of your teams. Have you tried any other like approaches to like managing teams, such as like a more hands-on, like a rigid approach? And if
Yeah.
so, like, has that worked out?
Um,
Sorry.
no, you're good. You're good. Yeah. So my first couple of years in management, I was very much a hands-on manager. Um, and it didn't work out too well. And so it really was because, so like I would start day one because my teams usually run for about approximately an academic year. So, and then sometimes people leave that team, people join that team, or sometimes you get a brand new team, just depending on like if you are shuffled around areas within the department. And so I usually would start day one, giving them essentially like, so we, as a department, we will provide our staff with manuals for whatever position they worked in. Then I had a manual separate to that of how things operated in my area and what my expectations were. My expectations used to be about 11 pages long, which are pretty extensive, whereas other managers are like 1 to 2 pages. And I'm like, no, this is the way things need to be. I have spelled out exactly how everything will happen this year, and I need you to stay within that box. What that did not allow for is room for creativity. So, like, oftentimes, what I came to realize is that we hire people because they are creative. They're going to bring this aspect to the team. And then what do we do on day one? We tell them all the things that they can't do, including those things that we hired them for. And so I used to be that manager. I was very rigid. I was like, it was my way or the highway. You choose, like, you're either on the bus or you're not. And I have no problem with that. We're going to keep moving forward regardless of if you're with me or not. So while it still accomplished the goals at the end of the day by producing what we needed to do, what it did not accomplish was like connections with my team that I was managing. And so like I didn't know them as people, they didn't know me. They really just were like really fearful of me because because I was like, okay, here's this notebook of all the things I have to do. This is how I have to do it. I can't stray from that. And if I stray from this, I'm going to get a documentation in my employment file. And so, they had great ideas. They were hired because they were creative people. They were hired because of what they brought to the table, but I was not allowing them to do that. And just like reflecting on that, the reason I was not doing that because I felt that I needed to control everything all the time, 24/7, all the things that were happening, because I wanted to make sure that I was looking good to my supervisors above. So my supervisors above, I looked great because like all the things were great. There was no problems in my area. But however, it was not like people didn't enjoy working for me, if that makes sense.
I see. Yeah. And I'm really glad that you brought into like different perspectives, how it looks from everybody's point of view. From your point of view, it seems like it worked as an effective approach. But from like the students' approaches or like the teams that you managed, like it wasn't as real because like they were more like fearful of like doing the wrong thing. And I feel like that's something that you could see in any workplace setting as well. Like that's something to take into account, whether it be like your point of view, the supervisor's point of view of like yours, and then like your workers' point of view as well. And I think that's pretty important. Like to take into account whenever you're doing like any of your management tasks as well. So earlier you were talking about like this rigidity within your workplace. It was causing a lot of like fear. It was causing a lot of hardships for like, you know, that development of creativity. It was also causing like a lot of like hard, or I would say difficulty in bonding with your teammates as well. So with that, that kind of goes into my next question. So one thing that I'd ask you is, do you believe that morale is important to those who you manage? And if so, how do you promote that morale?
Yeah. I definitely do believe that morale is important. I think there is a caveat with that, though. Um, as individuals, we are in charge of our own happiness, and so we can't wait for other people or the place that we work for to give us that happiness, right? And so I think it's kind of a two-way street. Like you have to be a happy person. You have to find things like that are making you happy. And if your workplace is not making you happy, there's a chance it's never going to make you happy if it's not the right fit for you. Um, then on the other side of that is that I think that happier employees are more likely to um, do the things that we ask them without like much praise or like a bonus or another incentive. So for example, like, you know, if a flood breaks out in one of our halls in the middle of the night, um, if a CM or a student staff member feels that they are well compensated, they feel like their supervisor values them, they feels like the department value them, they probably are not going to complain too much about cleaning up that water, because they know that like if the water isn't stopped, if the water isn't cleaned up, it's going to cause more long-term damage to the building, which is going to in turn impact our budget overall, which then could have some other impacts, where like maybe we need to cut back here because we had to do this major renovation that we were not planning to do because of all the water damage. But like an employee who doesn't feel like it's a happy place to work, they don't feel valued, they can be like, well, it's not my problem, not my building, I don't own the building. And so they could just let the water go. And so like I said, I think it's more of a two-way street. I think it's definitely important. I think also as the employee, like you definitely need to be communicating that with your peers and your supervisors or your managers, saying like, hey, I'm not happy for these reasons. You don't know what you don't know. And so if you're not happy, then that needs to be shared and see how that can be remedied. And so your employer could be more than willing to, or your manager could also be more than willing um, to remedy those issues as to why you are not happy, why you don't feel the morale is low, or why you feel the morale is low. But if they don't know, they can't fix it. They may be thinking like, okay, we do like ice cream Fridays, that's enough to boost morale every week, you know. And what if you are lactose intolerant? That may not boost your morale. And so if they don't know that, they just think that, oh, okay, you're not participating in ice cream Friday because maybe you're watching your figure, maybe you just don't like ice cream, whatever. Like they don't know how to fix what is broken unless you say something. I think morale could be also a very individualistic thing. You know, what makes you happy may not make the next person happy. And so, yeah, I honestly think that morale is a two-way street.
I see. Yeah, and that definitely makes sense too with how you were explaining it as well. It could be a two-way street, just because like on one hand, like you do have like that aspect where you want to make sure that, you know, goals are like a forefront of the position, not just like making friends as well, but also like that, like, you know, the job is worth like what they're coming in for and doing for. And I totally agree with that as well. So kind of like to go off like a last question that I do have. I kind of just have like a few last questions. Like I have a few last questions that I would ask everybody, but like honestly, like this interview is not supposed to be like super super long. So like the last question that I do have is, as someone who develops like other leaders, and who is in a leadership position of their own, to develop other leaders, where do you see yourself working and managing? Like, sorry, where do you see yourself? Like, what teams do you see yourself? Gosh, sorry. I'm gonna edit this out honestly, so that way it doesn't look like I'm messing up.
Okay, no worries.
But like, okay, so what teams do you hope to lead in the future?
Yeah. So I think in the future, I would like to lead teams. Like I would like to be executive, like the lead executive in the department, so the director, the senior director, whatever it's called, at the whatever institution or organization I'm working in. So I would like to be like the top of the whole show, I guess, in the future. So just kind of like continuing to move up, um, and just manage the whole operation instead of a piece of the operation.
Yeah, are you so like whenever you're talking about like the whole operation, are you talking about like a department in housing, or are you talking about like student affairs in just general?
Yeah, ideally it would be a department within housing, or the whole entire housing department. I don't foresee myself really leaving housing at this point. I mean, but you never know what will happen. Some an incredible opportunity can come along that I can't pass up. But I think managing the entire Department of Housing and Residential Life at a university somewhere.
I feel like that's really good. Those are some great goals to strive for as well. And so with that, I feel like that concludes our interview. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to meet with me and interview in this situation. But also like you provided some great insight that I think will be beneficial to like furthering my like outlook in terms of like management styles as well. So with that, thank you again for helping me with this interview, Fred.
Absolutely, anytime.